Hello, year eight. Welcome to your next lesson on technology. Um, this time we're going to be looking at the 20th century. Um, and you'll find that the setup is different, as I've explained in shown my homework. This is different because you won't have to write down your answers on paper if you don't want to. Of course, that option is still there for you. Instead, I've put the questions into Microsoft Forms, which you might be familiar with from lessons such as geography. This is thanks to Miss Bolcom, who has spent a lot of time teaching other teachers how to use our technology resources better and helping us to make it easier for you guys to do the work either on a laptop or computer, or if you want, on your telephone, on your mobile phone. So those are two options for you. You can use your mobile or you can use your computer. If you prefer, you can still write down the questions on paper and take a picture of them and send them to me. Otherwise, please use the Microsoft Forms link that is in Show My Homework and answer the questions using your computer or mobile. Our topic today is why did technology change so much in the 20th century? I've made that title slightly different to normal because, similar to the Victorian period, there is an incredible amount of change in the 20th century. You might just be becoming more aware of it now, but the last 100 years has seen us go from people who didn't even have aeroplanes to people who are charting spacecraft to Mars. The leaps in technology, not just there, but in sort of micro technology as well, and the chips that are on our phones and things, has just totally jumped leaps and bounds. And we are incredibly advanced compared to 100 years ago in many ways, technologically speaking. Here we go. The first thing I want you to do is watch this video. It's the trailer for 101 events that made the 20th century. The documentary itself is available on YouTube if you want to watch. It's also available on other websites. And it has it's about 1 minute long, and it gives you a pastiche of people, as you can see there's Hitler here, events such as the First World War, Second World War, first man on the moon, and lots of different technologies, medical technologies, military technologies, all sorts of things. And it's going to help you to start to think about the period that we're looking at. Once you've watched that video, I want you to answer questions 1 to 4 on Microsoft Forms. As I said, answer on Microsoft Forms or write down the question and the answer on a piece of paper if that's the way you're doing it. Do that now. Okay, your first area is going to be settlements. Settlements changed a lot in the 20th century because of the types of construction materials that we had, but also because of the pressures that were put on housing. Because of conflict, for us, the Second World War, much of the old Victorian housing was destroyed, but a lot of it was just unfit for purpose because it was unsanitary and it was falling down. And so a lot of the old Victorian buildings were cleared away, and concrete and steel and glass were used to create the settlements that we have today. I want you to pause the video here and just read through this and then restart the video again. Okay, so you should have read through and seen that there are a lot of factors which caused tower blocks and housing estates to be built. Things like population boom and also economic pressure, people wanting to save money but also people becoming wealthier and wanting more for their money. I just wanted to show you these two pictures of London because it gives us a real sense of the change. If you look at the bottom picture, in the very bottom of that picture, you can see old Victorian terrace houses. Behind them are the 1950s, 60s, 70s tower blocks. And behind them are the skyscrapers that we're used to today. And that is, 100 years plus of building development right in that one picture. And the same in the top picture. You can see the London Eye. On the left-hand side is Westminster. And you can see that there is a great deal of change from the small Victorian buildings to the large 20th century buildings. Can you now answer questions 5 to 7 on Microsoft Forms? The next topic, as you know, is transport. This one really takes off, excuse the pun, in the 20th century with the introduction of brand new forms of transport. Things like combustion engine driven cars, okay, that we're really used to today, but were novelties when they were invented. Okay, things like aeroplanes. Aeroplanes are so common now. I live underneath the flight path for Heathrow. I see and I hear planes all the time. It's just part of life. But at the beginning of the 20th century, it was brand new. It was completely a revolutionary technology. And these two types of transport, I think, are the key developments in transport. And they open the way for huge further developments around the world in terms of transportation and in terms of the development of humanity and the planet generally. As we know, it affects the climate, but it also affects how we migrate and how we live our lives. So now I want you to just read through this slide. And if you want to see a video of the very first aeroplane in flight, you can follow the next link, which I've been showing my homework, just to show you a short video of the first aeroplane flying. So pause here and read through that and watch the video if you want. Just to give you an idea of how cars really have changed the way the world looks and the way the world for human built world looks. On the left is Victorian, basically a Victorian Detroit. Okay, it's America. It's a city in America which is famous for building cars these days. But Hastings Street in Victorian times was, as you can see, nice straight road, lots and lots of buildings, lots of people living there, not many vehicles on the roads. But a modern picture on the right-hand side, you can see the Ford factory, okay, that famous car company that created the Model T Ford and invented the moving production line. The Ford factory is at the centre of this development. The old Victorian streets have all disappeared, the old houses have disappeared, and roads have taken over. There are freeways running straight through where this old Victorian part of Detroit used to be. So you can really see how cars have changed the world that we live in hugely. I just wanted to finish with a couple of very cool inventions that we no longer use. On the left is Concorde, which just before you guys were born, but when I was young, Concorde was a plane that travelled faster than sound. And it was the way that the wealthier people, businessmen, actors, etc., travel around it. Get you from London to New York, get you in 3 hours or less because it could travel faster than sound. And it made a huge bang as it flew overhead because that bang was Concorde breaking the sound barrier and travelling faster than sound and making all the air molecules move at an incredibly fast speed. On the right-hand side, you've got a Zeppelin or an airship, the USS Akron. Airships were incredibly common forms of transport before airliners. So this one is back in the 1930s. They fell out of favour as the jet engine took over, and numerous accidents caused airships to be dangerous or seem dangerous to the public. Anyway, I will come back to airships in our next lesson. Can you answer questions 8 to 10 now on Microsoft Forms, all about transport? Pause the video here, answer questions 8 to 10. Okay, the next section is public health and science. This, of course, was also revolutionary in many ways during the 20th century, from transplants to X-rays to cloning to stem cell research. Well, we'll come on to that one next lesson. I want you to read this and read about all the things we take for granted, which were in fact invented because of conflict that happened in the 20th century. So pause here, read that, and then start the video again. The other part of the public health and science section I wanted you to know about was nuclear fission. This is all about splitting the atom and generating a huge amount of energy because of the atom being split. This actually was researched and discovered at the beginning of the 20th century. Although ways of using that energy hadn't been worked out, a scientist called Ernest Rutherford was able to observe an atom that he split by firing a neutron at the atom, really small particles. However, from these small particles, huge amounts of energy can be created and would later be harnessed in nuclear energy and nuclear weapons. Pause the video here and answer questions 11 to 13, please. Final section then, the military. As I said, the nuclear fission was discovered. The ability to harness that energy and use it was developed by 1945. It was put into effect, and the first nuclear bombs were created. They are on the first nuclear bomb ever is on the left-hand side. It was named Batman because it was very large and round. This bomb and the little boy, I think was its brother bomb, were dropped on two cities in Japan, Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And you can see the devastation that was caused in Nagasaki in the bottom right corner. The entire area of Nagasaki was wiped out, all the people there too, very, very quickly. So huge destructive power from the nuclear bomb. And this created a need amongst superpowers to create more nuclear bombs, bigger nuclear bombs, and this created a kind of an arms race, is what we call it. So can you just read that green box? Pause the video here and do that, and then move on. There was another kind of race. Apart from the arms race in the 20th century, there was also the space race, which was primarily between the USA and the USSR, the Soviet Union. This, in essence, was who could build the first rocket to take man to the moon. And in between, there were plenty of satellites put in space, even animals such as dogs and chimpanzees, and eventually human beings, both men and women. The space race used the jet engine technology, which was developed during the Second World War. Not a combustion engine that cars used, but a jet engine. And the most powerful of these was the rocket. And with the rocket, people were able to travel outside of Earth's gravity into space. Can you read the blue box? Pause the video here and do that, and then answer questions 14 to 16 on Microsoft Forms. Okay, so we're at the end, practically, of our lesson, and we've got two questions left, 17 and 18. I want you to just think about the factors that we've been looking at: the individuals, economics, war, science, and anything else that's popped into your head. And I want you to think about what has been changing technology the most during this short lesson. And then I want you to pause the video here now and answer question 17 on Microsoft Forms. Okay, final question. In the 20th century, which factor had the biggest impact on change in technology and why? Same question as we've had every lesson. I know a lot of you have been using the sentence starters very well, structuring your answers into 3 or more clear paragraphs. I would like everybody to attempt this. Please attempt this. You can do it. You have all the tools you need. I'm looking forward to reading your answers. This can be a very contentious question. If we were in class, we'd have a debate about it. We'd have a big discussion. But just look over what we've learned today. Look over your thoughts about which factor had the biggest impact. And using sentence starters, answer question 18 on Microsoft Forms. And that's all. Please submit if you've written your work by hand, please submit that on Show My Homework. Otherwise, you will have completed your Microsoft Forms, and that means that I have instantly got your answers. I will then go through Show My Homework and click Submitted for everybody's work. Hopefully, this system will bypass the really annoying way that Show My Homework sometimes doesn't let us see what you've done. So I hope that this works really well. I'll happily answer any questions or problems that you have, or alternatively, email your teacher, Mr. Weir or Miss Slater, whoever it may be. Okay, thanks very much, Year 8. Goodbye.